Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. It's good to see you here. Welcome to our very first Emeritus Professorial Lecture, our EPL, our first EPL as opposed to IPL. But here we are recognizing Rao Kosaraju, a very distinguished faculty member who has took on emeritus status in 2020. And so with Rao's initiation of this new tradition, I feel that that we're really setting a bar. And so I'm very, very pleased that we're able to do this. Rao was and will be now the Edward J. Schaefer Professor Emeritus in Engineering. He came to Johns Hopkins University 51 years ago. And through his retirement in the year 2020, as I said, he has demonstrated truly outstanding leadership in every aspect of his professional life. Through his many contributions to the field of theoretical computer science, the numerous faculty members and generations of students that he's mentored, and through his service to the school, the profession, and the university. Throughout the past half century, he's received accolades for his contributions to the field of algorithms, as well as for his teaching and for his roles he's played in the theoretical computer science community. Today, our recognizing Rao with the title of Professor Emeritus is our way of honoring him for his most distinguished career and the impact that he's had on the discipline, on the school, and on Johns Hopkins University. And so it really is a pleasure to be able to do this and to now introduce Randall Burns, professor and head of the Department of Computer Science. Randall.
Thank you, Ed. I have a lot to say about Rao, but that's unfortunately not my job today. He was chair of the department when he hired me, when I was hired, and has served as a role model and a mentor. And I have anecdotes about how I've tried to be as measured and reliable and passionate as Rao, but I don't get to share those today. What I do get to do is introduce Mike Atala, who received his PhD in EC and CS in 1982, advised by S. Rao Kosaraju. He got his PhD in 4 semesters. And this is normally when I'd say something along the lines of, and that was his most distinguished accomplishment. But I can't take that style today because Mike is really a remarkable researcher and teacher in information security and algorithms. He's a fellow and life fellow of the IEEE, a fellow of the ICM. He's written 487 articles according to Google Scholar, but that doesn't go back to his dissertation. So it's more than that. He's had multiple papers that have won Test of Time awards, which is really a testament to the importance of the work. He's a winner of the Ardnell Beman Award, the highest honor at Purdue in applied science and engineering. He is selected among the best teachers in the history of Purdue University. And there's actually a book that says that as well. And he's an established entrepreneur, having a company, Arkin Technologies, that runs on 5 billion software applications protecting them. So it is a pleasure to introduce Mike, and Mike is going to introduce Rao.
It is a pleasure for me to introduce Rao Kosaraju, who 42 years ago became my PhD advisor when I was a doctoral student at Johns Hopkins. He was a wonderful mentor and role model for me and for countless other students whose lives we touched. In the 42 years since then, I have yet to encounter anyone who can match the depth and breadth of his intellect. The quality of his teaching was legendary among the students, and it still is today. Also legendary was the amazing speed with which he came up with brilliant new ideas and approaches for solving even the most daunting open research problems. And when he presented research results, whether his own at a conference or those of others in a classroom, he managed to make even the most difficult ones easier to understand. It took a factor of 10 less time to understand a complex topic by listening to it, compared to reading about it in even the best written books and papers. His research results have been deep and exceptionally influential. in many areas of computer science, not only theory, but in such eminently applied domains as the analysis of software control structures, pattern matching, and computational biology. His research papers contain beautiful ideas and techniques and have found applicability well beyond their originally intended domains of application. Rao Kosaraju is one of the founding fathers of the theory community. Indeed, his record of service to that community was so exceptional that he received the prestigious ACM FIGAC Distinguished Service Award. The citation from ACM for that award describes him as, and I'm quoting here, an exemplary role model who has helped build the theory community and make it what it is today. He is a fellow of both ACM and IEEE. He has served on the editorial boards and program committees of all the flagship journals and conferences, and in leadership and advisory roles for national organizations that include NSF, DOE, NASA, and many CS departments at top universities. I feel privileged and honored to have Rao Kosaraju as my professional father. Thank you, Rao, from me and from the countless others whose lives you have so positively touched. It is a pleasure for me.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Mike. After these nice introductions, you will be let down hearing my talk. So, see, I come from a farming family in a small village. The village had no when we were growing up until we finished high school. We had no electricity, no running water, no real roads. So even though we had ambitions, with no real ambitions, it is understood that all of us, after getting a basic education, we will go back to farming, and maybe the education would help us in becoming a better farmer. So I leave it there whether I succeeded in that endeavor. So this is the only thing I have about the background. I just wanted to show you a picture of the high school senior year one. There are 8 teachers in the first row. They are the teachers for the whole 6 grades. They taught every student in the about 200 students. They taught everyone science, all the subjects. They were fantastic. So if they were not that good, I would not be here by this time. I hope some of my students would remember me the same way as I remember them. So I'm going to discuss my talk in research, teaching, and what's happening in theoretical computer science, and what are my current plans. Even though I'm retired, I'm still planning to do something with the university. So I have done research, as Mike stated, in several areas, but I will concentrate on the first 3, that too very, very superficially. So as Mike said, I love doing complicated problems, even if they are not really useful. Probably that is not a good trait. I think one should think of whether there are some applications to this, but we cannot go back in time. So I will give a short introduction to small problems in the first 3 areas: parallel computation, redistributing computations, and computational geometry problems. So the first papers I had was in 1969. That was my 3rd year as a grad student. So in my 2nd year in the spring semester, By that time, I finished all my qualifier. I finished the foreign language requirement, the courses, all of them. I just started working on my research. My advisors are Arvind Joshi and Yamada, as given in the second paper. They asked me to work on natural language processing because my support was was on natural language processing. The PI, I gather, was Professor Zelig Harris. He's a very well-known linguist, but I never met him. So we did some work in my second year spring semester, but three students, I don't remember the third one, myself, Leon Levy, and third student, we decided we should learn more before we leave University of Pennsylvania. So we decided we will teach the other two. We pick some topics, we give once in 2 weeks the discussion of some technical papers. So we started doing that, and they became somewhat popular. Some grad students and my two advisors started attending that also. So when I presented my talk, which is related to the first paper, they were excited with the results. I thought they were somewhat straightforward. They said, why don't you switch your research to the first topic? And if you are interested, you can continue with natural language processing after you finish your PhD. That's how my topic became the first one. So that is what I'm going to discuss. That had two results. I will just discuss one of them. The topic was on how to make use of multi-dimensional array of processors. So 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions, 4 dimensions. That was my research topic. I will talk about the 2-dimensional array. In 2-dimensional array, the processors are arranged as a grid, and each processor can communicate to its the closest 4 neighbors. So they get information from the closest neighbors, and they can do a computation. So you can potentially get n square speed up using this because all n square are operating in parallel. So the problem I had 2 results in that conference paper. The second one was an order of magnitude harder, but my advisors did not care. When I presented it at the conference, they cared only the first one, not the second one as much. So my taste is quite a bit different from the community's interest. So this is a classic dynamic programming algorithm. So in just an aside, dynamic programming is normally credited to Richard Bellman, who was at Rand Corporation. But many believe it was done by Professor Rufus Isaacs, who was a professor in the Applied Math and Statistics department. Both of them were at Rand Corporation. Rufus had some technical papers predating Bellman's one, but that's not my expertise. I will not go into this one, but Rufus is a remarkable researcher. So in this dynamic programming, we want to compute Cij's, ij's, I taking values 1 to n, j taking I to n. So we are given C11, C11, 22, 33, n. Our goal is to compute 1n. The formula is ij, Cij is Cik times Ck plus 1j sum over k from I to j minus 1. So I expanded it and finally output C1j. So if we do sequentially, if you do it in proper order, it will turn out you can compute all of these in n cubed time. So the sequential number of steps is the complexity is n cubed. When I say big O, it means some constant times n cubed. Too lazy to fix what that constant is. So whether that can be implemented using a 2-dimensional array. If it can be n cubed, would become n. that you cannot do any better because we can get a speed of a n square. So the obvious way is the ijth processor would compute Cij, but everyone noticed a major difficulty there. So if we are computing in that order given, the diagonal is given, the diagonal shown in color is given, and you will compute the next off diagonal, all of these. So from the ijth processor will need the vertical values, and it also needs the horizontal values as shown there. But they are out of phase. The one comes from time 1, the other comes from time j. So they are off. So that's where it stopped there. So the small idea I proposed was, while sending up or left, fold them into half. If you fold them into the half and send 2 streams each way, they will be in phase, and you can, at each ij, the delay would be, you can pipeline all of this so that the delay at each ij would be order 1. So it can be done in n squared. That was the end of it. So it was later implemented by Leo Gibas, H.D. Kang, and Thompson at CMU as a VLSI algorithm. So I'm a theoretician. Most of the people think I do nothing useful, but I just wanted to give one example where we did something substantial. We had a company, KMV Associates, where we had a contract from NASA where they wanted to use, the problem is related to emergency locator transmitter, ELTs. You see, every pilot is supposed to carry a transmitter. When the plane crashes, the transmitter starts beeping, and NASA wanted to detect those beeps and locate where they are coming from using the satellite data. The difficulty there was these commercial, some of the cheaper planes, they carry, to satisfy regulation, they buy a cheap transmitter, and no two transmitters have same frequency characteristics. The signal to noise ratio was enormous. So that was the contract we had. We were able to implement this. We used for noise reduction. This is between the two. David Vanderlin, he was a colleague in both of us were in EECS department. He is a specialist in digital signal processing. I'm okay in digital signal processing because my basic background was electrical engineering. So this involved computing many 8,000 point discrete Fourier transform, doing Doppler curve correlations, and it needed some parallelism. This is where we used extensive pipelining, which I was doing all this time. So it is very hard to implement to write pipelining type of algorithms. In fact, we hired a very experienced programmer to do this pipelining. He lasted one evening. So next day he said, I'm quitting, I'm not interested in, I don't want to say who it is because my friend Jack Rue is there and he would, he knows my other friend who lasted for one evening. So we finished there, and NASA was very pleased. 10 years later, I was on an advisory committee for NASA. NASA wanted to see what research they should be doing in computer science. There were many members. I was the only theoretician. The software developers always think these theoreticians are analog and people. They don't do anything useful at all. So they don't express it. They show proper respect, but you can read their minds. So as we were meeting, the person with whom we worked at NASA, he saw us, he recognized me, he knocks on the door and says, gentlemen, excuse me, I just want to interrupt you. Rao and his colleague did brilliant algorithmic development and implementation. It saved us so many jobs. So thank you, Rao. And then he left. And these people were surprised that I can do more than just do n log n computation on paper. So that is the only thing useful you will hear in the whole talk. So the second problem was, it is a purely theory problem. This is probably my strength and my weakness also. I spent years on this problem, and probably it is not useful at all. I'm not going to get into the details. So there is the double-ended queues. There are 3 double-ended queues there. So in a double-ended queue, you can insert a new element on the left or right, or you can delete an element on the left or right. So there are 3 double-ended queues. That is a standard DEC model. The more extended one is known as concatenable DEC model. In this one, you can specify A concatenate AB. That is, take double-ended queues A and B, splice them together into a single one, and they make it as one of the double-ended queues. They remove this second double-ended queue. So the issue is, how do you implement concatenable double-ended queues with standard double-ended queues? It comes about when you study Turing machines, multi-head Turing machines, jumping Turing machines, all of those. So the obvious simulation is when there is a concatenation, take one of those double-ended queues, delete one element at a time, insert it into the other one. So, but you can easily show that if you are a little careful and always transfer the shorter one to the longer one, if you perform n operations, the total time is order n. You see, it is, if it is given as an exercise, half the junior students in an algorithms course will be able to prove that it's a fairly trivial one. But the issue is whether you can do it so that even for concatenation, you can perform it in order one step. You see, some of these concatenations can take long. If both the double-ended queues are long, you have to transfer all of them. But if my constraint is, I want to perform each operation of concatenable DEC in 2 or 3, can I do it? So I was able to, I published a paper where it could, that it can be done. It is very, very complex, probably one of the most complicated ones. Definitely the most time I took, besides thinking NP-complete problems, all of these. This is the one I spent most time on it. In fact, I even drove to Penn State University, where my friend Joel Cyphers was giving a seminar. I wanted to hear his seminar so that I can see some of the intuition on related problems. This result killed that whole bunch of that area, the Turing machines with multiple heads, jumps, all of them, because each one is a special case of this one. So the third one is n-body potential fields. In this problem, I have 3D. In 3D, I'm given n charges. I want to compute the potential at each of those endpoints due to the other n minus 1. What is the potential? For any charge QA at point A, the potential at distance x is QA divided by distance between A and x. As the distance increases, potential decreases. For physicists, it is a very interesting problem, because when you have various bodies, if you want to find their dynamics, computing potential is very, very important. So this one, in fact, the first paper was Greengard and Rocklin. I think they are still at Yale. The paper they published was in Journal of Computational Physics, because it is very important to the physics community. So it's an approximate computation. If it is exact, nobody can beat n squared. N squared is the most obvious one. So we develop an order n log n algorithm. What they claimed was order n. So, but there is a practical sense. You see, when the points are distributed in some nice way, that is what they, this thing. But our one, opened up applications to many computational geometry problems. I would not go into the details, so I would just give you the simple idea. When you have two clusters of points widely separated, for each point in the left side, all of them have the same distance. For each point on the right side, the one on the left has the same point. So the effect can be computed with one computation rather than this one. So to compute the interaction between all pairs, we want to break up the all pairs into as few of these so-called well-separated pairs. And in doing that one, we discovered a nice data structure which allowed us to do this. I will not go into the details. The bottom line is, using this one, we can compute the data structure in n log n time. We can compute the pairs in order n time. Then the potential computation can be done in order n. So the overall is n log n. So it has many applications. Even last year, there was a paper by one researcher at University of Maryland on approximate Euclidean spanning tree. So, that was, I forgot to mention, that was primarily by my student, Paul Callahan, with Paul Callahan, brilliant PhD student. So I had many, many very good students. I listed a few of these ones: Mike Atala, Paul, Mike Capalbo, Mihai Pop, Ankur Bhargava, John Kutcher. I wanted to go back and edit, I forgot, but there are some very brilliant guys like Mo Cantabotra, who worked on robot arm motion, and then Joe Davison, who worked on graphs from structured programs. Teaching and education. I loved teaching. I spent awful lot of time. At the end of the class, if I think I didn't do something correctly, I will take notes of what I should be doing, why I did that one. Brilliant undergrad students. So I'm running a little late, so I would not give examples of those ones, but I had good examples. I emphasize critical thinking. I always say, don't ask what, you say why. You see, read before you see, don't read, just think about how you would solve and then go back and read. Half the time, the approach is exactly what you are thinking, but they happen to have done it 10 years before you, but it doesn't have depth. But if there is depth, you will understand where the difficulty is. That is my style. I always try to make sure all the students get engaged in the class. When I'm advising, I tell them, don't think of tomorrow, whether you can go to the company X or company Y. Plan, in addition to that, you also plan for 10, 15 years. The field is going to change. So be prepared whatever happens. Take more math courses, more writing courses beyond the minimum required. I taught many non-theory courses. I will give, sometimes they're theory courses. I always volunteer to teach. I give you one example. Once Assistant Dean Ross Karotis, I'm sure many of you don't know. Then he went to Colorado as Dean of Engineering. He sends a note to everyone. I want someone teaching engineering mathematics. You see, that is continuous mathematics. I'm a combinatorial guy. I looked at the topics. I knew those topics very, very well. I can teach. I can, even though I didn't teach anything on the 20 years, I volunteered to teach. So, but I don't know, fortunately or unfortunately, Ross comes to me and says, so-and-so wanted to teach, but in a different department, so-and-so felt you wanted to teach because your department can get more credit, more financial support. I know that is the last thing on your mind, but I always love to teach, to help the school department like this. So when I served on the NSF Advisory Committee for 6 years, 1985 to 1991. In fact, SciSe Directorate formed in 86, 87 one. Gordon Bell was the first assistant director of that one. But when I joined, we were in MPS. Ours was a division, computer research division. So I showed a lot of interest for student support, all things educational. So if there is a subcommittee needed, they used to request me to be on it. The first one was to study what are the needs for graduate research. So we, three of us, myself, David Grease from Cornell, Mike Fisher, we spent an awful lot of time and came to the conclusion number of PhDs should be double what they were. We were producing at that time 300, 601. So we suggested computer research increase the number of graduate student supports to double. The second one was on women. Even at that time, even now it's a problem, but that was a serious problem. 8 divisions were represented on this second review graduate fellows program. This is NSF wide. How we can increase where are the needs? We were able to convince that there is a new program needed to support women, women in engineering and computer science. Engineers went ahead, computer scientists, there was opposition from unexpected quarters and nothing happened, but we did our part. Then the trends in theoretical computer science. First 10 years, that is 1960 to 70, it is mostly switching circuits. It is prime implicants, combinational circuits, sequential circuits. I gave one example of a paper there. Complexity theory just started. It was totally inward-looking area, but quality is always very high. In the first 20 years, there is more breadth, like NP completeness. The first NP completeness was by Steve Cook, and that caught on fire. And for 20 years afterwards, about 1/3 of the papers used to be an NP completeness or approximation algorithms for it. Then RSA, Ron Rivest, Adi Shamir, then Edelman, they had their public encryption one that is still being widely discussed and widely used. More on complexity theory. For the 20th Foundations of Computer Science, I was the program chair. Since it is the 20th, we decided to invite 3 distinguished speakers to tell us what is happening in the field. You can see we invited Yuris Hartmanis, Sheila Greibach, and Kline. One is a complexity theory person. Sheila is a formal language person. Kline is a logician. So that is the center by the end of the 20 years. It is mostly inward looking. By 40th year, things have changed completely. Quality has remained exceptionally high. It attracted more combinatorial theories, more areas, quantum computing, quantum communications, game theory, like BB84 quantum distribution is the gold standard even today for quantum communication. The only problem, it's not widely used, is the speed of communication is very, very low. Then zero knowledge proofs. Then Peter Shor's polynomial time algorithm for quantum computation for primality testing. Then algorithmic game theory one. So by this time, now many wide applications, many new startups happen, like Akamai, Google, now Bitcoin, nobody knows who started that one, but all of them mostly primarily theoreticians. Even funding influenced the theory area. For the first 20 years, most of the funding available was single PI grants. So that essentially forces you to be not a lab, just a small scale researcher. That reflected in this. But now there are small grants, about the same number, but there is a lot more funding available for collaborative research. I think that's a very good trend. because you can do, if you are a pure theoretician, you can still do like the concatenable double-ended queues I did. Or if you are interested in applying these to important problems, you can do by collaborating with others in a certain domain. So I think it is a lot of interesting things are happening. There are many, many special ones. So I think the field has very bright future. There will be a lot more startups, all of this. What am I planning? I've been I believe in lifelong learning. In fact, in the courses I teach way back, I used to tell them about the importance of continuing to learn. In college, we only teach you how to think. You have to go back and continuous learning. So way back, Joanna might remember some of the undergrads used to have T-shirts with my sayings in the class and sell them. And once one student comes and says, I cannot give you one of the T-shirts because we didn't realize we sold out all of them. So at that time, they used to be quite popular. So I believe in lifelong learning. I practice the same thing. After retirement 2 years ago, I have taken 3 courses on neural science. I'm reading more research papers now than when I was full-time employee of Johns Hopkins University. In fact, I'm going to propose a 1-credit course at the intersection of neuroscience and computer science. I think there is a good opportunity there. There's a lot of interest in computer science on brain computation. So I have very good knowledge on both sides of this thing. I hope there will be some students taking that one. That's in the fall one. My own interest is in human cerebellum. Why is that interesting? Cerebellum itself, it has more than half the brain neurons. It has 50 billion neurons, and the rest of the brain has 37 billion neurons. It has an exceedingly simple structure. It is, you see, there is this new project, connectomes. In the case of cerebellum, connectome is well understood. How these ones are understood. So syntax is known, semantics is what is not known. So there is no consensus on what cerebellum does. It has 50 billion neurons. 50, 60 years, they spent so much time on this. They more or less understand. So, but still, they don't even agree on what the function of the cerebellum is. So I have a lot of interest in this. I have some observations, more than observations. So just some closing remarks. When I came for 1 year. I stayed for 51 plus years because I still will be teaching. Enjoyed every minute. Hopkins is a wonderful place to work. If it were not, I might have gone back after first year. It was a really wonderful place. Many close and genuine friends. I just want to tell you one, even though probably it's getting short. So this was my second year or so. I was in computer science program. I used to meet electrical engineers in the Levering Hall cafeteria. One of them was Jack Rue and David Vanderling, and others also. Once I went to a conference at Princeton, Jack and David also came there. I drove, you see, they came the night before. I drove that day. It was the construction going on. They took me one place to the other. Finally, I parked somewhere and I went to the conference in the evening. When we were going back, they were walking to the hotel. I told them, why, this is rain. Why do you want to walk? We will go in my car. So they said, fine. Next 20 minutes, they looked for my car in this rain. At that time, they taught me so many, the American culture, so many 4-letter words. Until we found the car, but as soon as we got into the car, they forgot, they were joking. So I really liked the friendly attitude. They don't take things that seriously. So I don't know whether Jack remembers that one. So so when computer science program was closed, I had an option going to math sciences headed by Roger Horn or electrical engineering. So I had so many friends in electrical engineering. My background was electrical engineering. I didn't even think for an hour. I immediately joined the electrical engineering department. Hopkins is a wonderful place. Everyone is so friendly, friendly and helpful administrative staff. Remarkable. I just give one short one. In EECS, once I wrote I had 3 papers in an ACM stock conference. I wrote them on a weekend. I was been working with them on them for a year or two, but finally I wrote them the weekend before. On Monday, I go to one of the administrators, Nancy Sheeler, and I say, I don't know how to tell you. I have 3 handwritten ones. You are the only one who can recognize my handwriting. So can you type 1 or 2? She said, I will close the door. I will not go for lunch. I will do as much as I can. She finished all 3 before the FedEx. I had to drop FedEx the time at the BWI airport. So she went out of the way. This is one of the many examples I can give. So I enjoyed everything here. I hope students learned how to think. I hope I impacted research in a small way. I hope I contributed positively to the reputation of JHU. So when I was at NSF, my boss, either Farnham Jahanian or Jim Caruso, when they are discussing about universities, they would always say, and Johns Hopkins University, say Raw would be offended if we don't include Johns Hopkins in this one. So I'm always a very, very strong booster of Johns Hopkins. So thank you very much for attending.
Thank you, Rao. Thank you very much for your words. We all look forward to benefiting from your wise counsel, your support, your mentorship for many years to come. The only quibble I have with you is why only on 1 credit?
You see, the only reason is I have material for 3 credits, but since it is not my area, I don't want to be brash in saying I will teach. If it goes well with 1 credit, I will think of a 3 credit course. So. And
also want to present you with a small token and souvenir of this event. Oh, sure.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rao.
Yeah.
Thank you, Randall. Thank you, Mike. And you can all join us for a celebratory talk. At least have now a cup. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.